Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Charles Sebastian. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we're going to be talking about that damn JJ Redick again. We're going to be talking about him again. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. Also, we're going to be finally launching our exclusive Dreamers Pro community on the 27th of this month. If you guys want a one-time offer to secure a one-time 70% off deal, please make sure you go ahead and do that. But the only way for you to gain access to that, you got to be a part of the waiting list. Make sure you sign up to that. We have that pinned in the comments below. We have about 500 signups right now. If you want to be a part of that and get that 70% deal off, go ahead and check it out. Anyway, let's get into today's topic. This damn JJ Redick is back. I have come to the conclusion that I'm not going to be a fan of JJ. I just can't do it. I just cannot do it. It's like the Lakers were already pissing me off as a former Laker fan, but then they decided, you know what? How can I piss off? Like, what can we do to piss off some people a little bit more? You know what? Let's go hire JJ Redick and make him right. Like, this guy is just insufferable. Like, I cannot tolerate JJ Redick. JJ Redick, before he became the coach of Lakers, was known for being one of the faces that contributed to the erosion of the reputation of players in the past. JJ Redick was one of them. He was one of the ones that went out there talking about Larry Bird and all of that. The game wasn't physical in the past, to the point where JJ Redick was being called up by Pantheon players, top 75 guys, and saying this guy is a clown. Bob Cousy called him out. Jerry West called him out. Dominique Wilkins called him out. Michael Cooper called him out. And a bunch of other people were like, yo, what is this dude on right now? He made it his business to trash players from the past. And it looks like even with his new position as a Lakers coach, he still is on that crusade to basically denigrate eras in the past. Now, as you guys know, we're having this robust conversation around the direction of the NBA game, the way it's being played with too many threes and blah, 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 blah. And JJ Redick decided, you know what? Let me chime in and give you guys my take on what's really going on here. And in typical JJ Redick fashion, he absolutely ended up pissing off everybody with his ridiculous viewpoints. So what happened? This morning I was just combing through the internet and I came across an article on fadeawayworld.net that said, JJ Redick blames NBA analysts and social media for the decline in viewership. And I'm like, we gotta talk about this clown today. But before we even get into what this joker said, today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, Game Time. With the year almost over, I am super excited about creating memories with family and friends by attending various plays, theater shows, and sporting events. And when it comes time to look for tickets, Game Time is my go-to. Game Time is one of the most reliable marketplaces for last-minute tickets to the most popular events in sports, music, and theater in more than 60 cities across the United States and Canada. Game Time saves me money, time, and stress. It finds the best deals and guarantees that the tickets are legit, and it makes sure that the tickets are delivered to me on time. Game Time Picks is my favorite tool. It cuts through the fluff and shows you the best deals on great seats near you so you don't waste time searching. For example, I'm really looking forward to this upcoming game between the Lakers and the Clippers. Here's what I like to do. First, I select an all-in price to see the total ticket price up front, so I'm not surprised by the additional fees at checkout. Next, I click on Game Time Picks to check out their curated deals. And finally, I pick the ticket I want. I choose the cheapest deal, the great deal, or the amazing deal. Once you select the ticket you want, you can use their panoramic seat view to ensure you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and use redeem code CLNS for $20 off. And remember, whenever you support this sponsor, you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So let's get into what this article had to say. JJ Redick became the latest to weigh in on the discourse surrounding the declining ratings for the NBA. Speaking to Sam Amick of The Athletic, Redick noted that the negative coverage surrounding the modern NBA, its players, and its structure is a big reason why viewership has decreased. He pointed out that if people are regularly told that the product is bad, they are not going to be inclined to tune in on television. I don't think we have done a good job of storytelling, of celebrating the game. If I'm a casual fan and you tell me every time I turn on the television that the product sucks, well, I'm not going to watch the product. And that's really what happened over the last 10 to 15 years. I don't know why it's not funny to me. Continues on. The game should be celebrated. The league is more talented and skilled than it was 18 years ago when I was drafted. That's a fact. There are more players that are excellent. There are more teams that are excellent. Redick also pointed out the criticism of the NBA during his playing days have been addressed in recent years, and the improvement of perceived flaws from that time were never celebrated. Instead, those in media have found new problems with the modern game and chose to aim their venom and vitriol to those aspects of the sport instead. I heard when I played, I don't know 4 or 5 years, well, why do we even play the regular season? We know who's going to be in the finals. Well, guess what? We have parity now, and we're not celebrating parity. We're not celebrating the fact that the Western Conference is loaded as it is. We're playing a Sacramento team tonight that's incredible, with incredible talent, and they've got a losing record of 13-4. It's not because they're bad. They're a bad basketball team. And then he continues on finally with his nonsense. We don't have anybody that's willing to step up to the facts that this is an awesome game and we should talk about it and celebrate it in a positive way. That doesn't mean we don't critique it. We should critique it, but we should celebrate it. Nobody's doing that, and people that have a small niche following on Twitter. And frankly, I would argue as well that everyone in our ecosystem pays too much attention to what is said on Twitter. And part of this whole ratings discussion is because people on Twitter are talking, okay, let's address this foolishness that JJ Redick just spewed all over the table. Okay, let's just go through this. First of all, JJ Redick said, I think we have not been doing a good job with storytelling. You need to expand on that. In terms of what? In terms of what? That's the first thing. The second thing, he said, the reality is, they're telling people that the game sucks. He says not fun. And then he goes, the game should be celebrated. The league is more talented and skilled than it was 18 years ago. That's a fact. How do you prove this? How do you prove this? Let me tell you the reason why some of us believe, or rather, why some of us are skeptical of this point of view. JJ is talking about the league is more talented than it ever was before. But yesterday, we just played an audio of Kevin Garnett speaking to the commissioner, Adam Silver, who openly admitted that if we had the same restrictive rules, like lack of freedom of movement, hand checking, players that could be physical with the offensive players like Stephen Curry would not be able to showcase their talents. They would be restricted, and therefore they would not be as great as they are today. So if the rules are more lax, how can you then say that that the players are more skilled today when they're given more freedom? That's number one. Number two, how do you then explain the players that were excellent from the past, right? They're played under a more restrictive NBA. How do you quantify this? He says the players today are more talented. In what aspect? Let me give you guys some data here. JJ is talking about players are more skilled today. Teams are taking more threes, but the NBA is only scoring about 2 more points per game or down 2 more points per game on average. How do you explain this? Let's go through this, because JJ Redick is a damn liar. And we gotta get the record straight. NBA 3-point shooting over the years, okay? Because this dude be lying. I think he just be up there twerking it up, making up stories, and just basically inventing reality. So let's go over some of the data here. JJ is talking about players today are more talented than ever before. And when people like this say this, they usually like to point to the 3-point shooting. Let me give you guys some information here, because just to prove that JJ Redick is just up there saying a bunch of nonsense. All right. In the 1990s, teams were attempting 11.4 threes a game, right? They were making 34.7% of those threes. In the 2000s, teams were attempting 15.7 threes per game. They were making 35.6%, so that's an improvement, one percentage point. In the 2010s, teams were attempting 23 threes a game. Guess what they were shooting? 35.6%. In the 2020s, teams are attempting 35 threes a game and making 36.1. That's half of a percentage point. But if you leave it to jokers like JJ Redick, they'll tell you that these guys are the most skilled players that we have ever seen in our lives. Meanwhile, the data shows that their shooting, in terms of their skill, it's more or less the same. More or less the same. The averages haven't moved over the last 30 years. The only difference in terms of an improvement has been about a 1% improvement. But JJ Redick is saying that players today are more skilled than ever before. Okay, fantastic. Let's go through, because when people like this say this, I want to look at, okay, who are the top guys in the NBA today? Right? Let's look at the 2020s. Who are the top guys that we can say, man, you know what? These guys are really out of this world. Let's look at them. You have De'Aaron Fox. You have Anthony Davis. You have Jason Tatum. You have Anthony Edwards. You have Luka Doncic. You have Nikola Jokic. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo. Who else am I missing? John Morant. And maybe a few other people that I'm not thinking about right now. Maybe an SGA, of course. SGA, he's there as well. And then maybe some other names that are Joel Embiid. Okay, let's throw in Joel Embiid. You're like, wow, these are a talented group of players, right? Okay, let's look at the generation before that. Let's look at the 2010s. Let's see what kind of names pop up in the 2010s. Let's see who we got. You got Stephen Curry. You got Kevin Durant. You got Russell Westbrook. You got D Rose. You had Blake Griffin. You had I just can't think of some of the players right now. You had Paul George. You had Kawhi Leonard. You had James Harden. So I'm giving you great players from every generation. And I don't think anybody in their right mind can say that the first group that I named in the 2020s are way more advanced than the groups that I just named in the 2010s. Let's go to the era before that. You had Kobe Bryant. You had Shaquille O'Neal. Kobe's better than all these dudes I just mentioned. Anyway, you got Kobe Bryant. You had Shaq. You had D. Wade. You had Vince Carter. You had Paul Pierce. You had Kevin Garnett. You had Allen Iverson. You had Tracy McGrady. Who else? You had Ray Allen. You had Tim Duncan. Right? I just gave you 10 guys. We're going from era to era to era, and I'm willing to make an argument. You had LeBron James. I think I said LeBron James. And I'm willing to say players 20 years ago, that group I just mentioned, with all of those guys, Steve Nash and all of them, were actually better. And I think you can actually argue that quite easily than the first group I mentioned. Let's go back to the era before that, because he said an 18-year window. So JJ Redick, with his crazy behind, is actually talking about players from the 2000s. Let's take it one generation back. You had the 90s. You had Patrick Ewing. You had Karl Malone. You had John Stockton, who leads the NBA in all-time in assists. I mean, I'm just saying. That's who he is. And arguably, pound for pound, the most durable NBA player ever in John Stockton. I mean, I'm just saying. You had, did I mention Charles Barkley? You had Akeem Olajuwon. You had Scottie Pippen. You had Clyde Drexler. Oh, you had a guy. What was this guy's name? Damn, I can't remember it. Michael Jordan. You had Larry Bird. You had Magic Johnson. So when we look at the top tier players from every single decade, how can JJ Redick open his ass to then turn around and say players today are clearly more talented and then say at the end, that's a fact? Based on what? If you actually paid attention to the list, the players, as I was going backwards, were better. Now let's look at athleticism. You have players like John Morant, who's a freak athlete today. You have players like Anthony Edwards, who's a freak athlete. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's a freak athlete. Who else can I think of right now? Those are the top three guys that come to mind right now. Let's look at the era, but let's look at the group before that. You had Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin was as athletic as anybody we're watching playing basketball today. He was as athletic as anybody we're watching play ball today. You had Jason Richardson. You had Derrick Rose. You had Russell Westbrook. You had LeBron James. You go to the era before that. The greatest dunker in NBA history, Vince Carter. You had Kobe Bryant. You had LeBron James. You had Dwayne Wade. You had Allen Iverson. You had Shaq. You had Tracy McGrady. You had Paul Pierce. You had all of these top of the shelf athletes. You go to the decade before, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on. But if you listen to jokers like JJ Redick, they'll have you thinking you're watching the best thing since sliced bread. This is why so many people don't like JJ Redick. He's talking about the negative coverage of the game when he was one of the jokers that was tarnishing eras of the past, and he was the one that was alienating fans of all of these players. It was him. And then he got the nerve to turn around with his arrogant ass and then say, oh, well, you know, it's the way the game is being covered and it's a negative thing that these people are saying. You was part of it. You was part of it. So to sit up here and act like you're holier than thou and I'm above it all because I'm JJ Redick and I went to Duke and I think I'm better than everybody else. You can never take JJ Redick serious. He's criticizing people for the very thing that he did. Why do you think so many Pantheon greats were calling him out? So many. JJ was talking about the 90s wasn't physical. Dominique Wilkins turned around and said, this dude is a bozo. They said he's a bozo. But y'all want to look up to JJ Redick because he's looks smart or whatever the hell it is, and y'all want to believe what he's saying. And now he going to sit up here and talk about, well, as you know, it was the way the game was being covered before. The negative things that we're saying. And you tell people that players today for the last 15 years the game is bad, then what you think they're going to believe? And by the way, all those players in the past, they couldn't even dribble the ball properly. That's JJ Redick. But we supposed to take him seriously. This dude is not serious. He's not serious. He is very much, he is also part of the problem. But he's acting like as if he's above it all, as he usually does. This dude is a total clown. And I said it. And you know who else said it? The NBA greats said it. So if I don't know basketball and I'm calling him a clown, they know basketball and they still call him a clown. And I agree with them. Let me just put it that way. I agree with them. We must never take JJ Redick seriously. Never. Never. These are my thoughts. Catch you on the next show and I'm out. Peace.